In the United States, there's a scary resemblance between school food and prison food. Prison food is a blanket term I will use for all detention centers in the U.S. These include juvenile detention centers, county and state jails, and state and federal penitentiaries or prisons. As we can imagine, prison food is probably not the most desirable, as it is filled with high or unhealthy amounts of saturated fats, sodium, and calories. Not to mention the taste, which most of us would probably even deem as grotesque, or in other words, inedible. As we do not expect the food to hold Michelin star standards, we definitely do not expect the massive number of prisoner-reported hunger and starvation. My focus is on malnutrition, the condition that results from eating a diet in which nutrients are either not enough or are too much, such that a diet causes health problems. The Federal Prison Bureau requires all detention facilities to have a licensed dietitian review all menus to be accredited by the American Correctional Association. To put into perspective the corruption of the American Correctional Association, they recommend but do not mandate that prisons offer inmates 3 meals a day. Yes, you heard me correctly. We do not necessarily feed the incarcerated members of our society 3 meals a day. In fact, around 23,000 prisoners in the state of Texas alone are only being fed twice a day. The lack of mandated food or even insufficient provided food perpetuates the cycle of illegal commissary trade and makeshift electronic cookers, which clearly cannot be so safe. The inherent problems that erupt from these illegal alternatives evoke frequent violence, and most importantly, violence out of hunger. And as we can imagine, budget-conscious legislators take full advantage of this system and seemingly more and more turn to outsourcing food service to private contractors to continue slashing food costs. I'm really not quite certain detention centers should have the right to call themselves correctional facilities. I would find it hard to believe that these facilities could find a successful method of rectifying these members of our society when there is such blatant malnutrition. The point being, prisons are given $205 million a year just for food, and this is the outcome. But public schools are given $11 billion a year just for food, and they are having the same problems. Why? Because schools and prisons are outsourcing to the same privatized companies who supply schools and prisons with the same food. But with that absurd financial gap, how are we treating young children in public schools with this same corrupt ideology? Children need fuel to concentrate and learn. Understandably, schools are under financial pressure. But if our tax dollars are going to be skimped in any way, it should not be directly affecting the health of our children. The main culprit is this idea of outsourcing and privatization. Because schools are already looking to cut back on costs, private firms step up and claim they can make the lunchroom into a moneymaker. Schools and prisons jump to this idea, disregarding the negative effects. Why? Because they can do this by somehow meeting the corrupt regulations. Studies show that privatized food services are directly associated with lower test scores. Sodexo is one of the top companies schools and prisons both use to outsource and privatize their food systems. Despite the financial crisis, companies like Sodexo continue raking in the big bucks. These are the companies our tax money is supporting, the companies that continue to run up costs and run down quality. This is our money, so what can we do? We can fight to maintain local control of food service and make sure that school boards and school officials sharpen their focus on providing nutrient-based, healthy food for the future of our country.